the Mutual Broadcasting System presents Richie and John.
In the age of innovation, oh how times have changed. Electric dreams we ride on, but the road's been rearranged. There's a buzz in the air, but it's not the hum of wheels. It's the chatter of politics, casting shadows on deals. Turn up the sound, it's the Richie and John show, where we'll navigate the currents and the winds that blow. Todd Bianco is back to talk cars, but with a different perspective. Elon Musk is no hero, but a Nazi with Buddy Trump, both of them defective.
The podcast that connects you with the people, events, headlines, and lifestyle interests of the global LGBTQ+ community. Here's Richie Roy and John McMullen.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Richie and John. It is Substantial Saturday. We are back doing our Saturday episodes where we delve a little deeper into a certain topic. And this week, I am here, of course, with my intrepid co-host, John McMullen.
And we're here, Mr. Intrepid.
Mr. Intrepid himself. And we're here with our good friend and regular correspondent, Todd Bianco, to talk about automobiles and the state we are in. We've got a lot to talk about here. Obviously, Tesla is one thing to talk about.
Well, that's one.
It is a big thing to think about. Teslas are in the spotlight, obviously, because the CEO is also sort of front and center in terms of the authoritarian takeover of this country. And then we also have some other things. We have some competitors from China coming in with very interesting ideas for fast charging and sort of some offerings that really might make Tesla seem like a thing of the past. And then we also have some tariffs that have been thrown on to the auto industry that are just throwing everything into an absolute tailspin. So lots on the car front. So
yeah, they've been kind of the cool kid cars to have for so long, and all of a sudden, one guy killed it all.
He did a pretty good job.
And it's interesting, too, the scrambling of
he did a pretty good job of tanking sales, although we'll see if they come back with the new refreshed Model Y.
Just a year ago, or 6 months ago, if you were a red-blooded American Trump supporter, you would never look at an electric car because that's for homosexuals and vegans. But now, after, Cal Worthington put a couple Teslas in front of the White House, you see on Twitter, these right-wing pundits are talking about how they can't wait to get delivery of their new Teslas. So what's happening?
That may be true, but there's not a lot of right-wing there's not enough of them. There's not enough Fox News hosts or One American News or Newsmax hosts. That's only a couple of dozen at most. That's not going to make the difference. The difference will be, and what are they going to buy? A Model S? They can afford that because they're all making millions of dollars per year. After the little Hatch Act violation on the White House lawn, it's kind of hard to know where it's going to go. I don't see them I don't see those people that they're talking to rushing to buy a Tesla. Now, to be fair, the new Model Y is sold out in the United States and is selling extremely well in the rest of the world. So there is that. I don't know how that's going to go as far as when they roll out there's the rear drive Model Y. There'll be eventually the performance Model Y, just the dual motor long range Model Y, all of which will have, slightly lower prices than the launch model. Maybe it's possible that the performance model will have about the same price, but the launch model included the $8,000 full self-driving option. So, it's kind of hard to compare when you're looking at those things.
Can we roll the clock back, though, for 3 years first? Because Todd and I had a past life together, and we used to talk about cars every Saturday on the radio. And, I remember long before they were starting to deliver them that we were talking about, and you and I had very different opinions at that time about the Cybertruck.
Yes, the Cybertruck.
And I have always maintained that I thought that calling it a dumpster fire or a dumpster is actually kind of tame for how I've always kind of thought of this vehicle, because I've never been impressed with the look and the feel of it. And I always thought that the people who would be driving it would be largely the dickheads who are. So it turns out that they fall apart at a moment's notice. And we just, I think, had like the 8th recall of these things, because now just, everyday components of the exterior of it are falling off the chassis. What in the hell?
They used the wrong structural glue.
They didn't spring for the Elmers. They went to the Dollar General and got the generic glue to put the thing together.
Okay.
The thing is that nobody's ever built a car like this before, and they didn't know what they were doing either, because it's their best guess, because it's not like they could go to see the past 25 years of history of working with this kind of metal on this kind of a frame. Nobody else has done something like this before.
They screwed it up. If they can get their act together with that vehicle, with that model,
yes,
I have a marketing line that they can take that's been very effective to use for that. No. I think that they could start running ads that say it's now built Ford tough.
We'll see what it does. The thing, I think that the interesting thing about the Cybertruck and what it will come down to, first of all, they had, like 2 million pre-orders for it, but there's been many, many people, first of all, that dropped out because of Elon. Second of all, the price was double what they said it was going to be when they first introduced it, like 6 years ago, whatever it was. So the price is up dramatically, and they haven't brought the price down yet. It's basically much more than people thought it was going to be. So a lot of the pre-orders, most of them dropped out. It's still selling, and it's still selling better than the Rivian R1T, and it's selling better than the Ford F-150 Lightning, if that's telling you anything. But what it's really telling you is that the pickup truck market is not sold on electric yet. I think that's what that's really saying, and that the people who are driving the Cybertruck have basically defaulted to douchebag mode.
Okay, I'll buy that.
I think that's what it is. But the difference, I think, what the Cybertruck is something that nobody's ever done before, first of all. Number one, it was steer-by-wire. Nobody else had a steer-by-wire in the market yet. And it's also the first 48-volt, full 48-volt car. Everything in the car is 48-volt. It used to be that all of your accessories, and still today, almost every single car made, it's a 12-volt battery that runs all of your accessories. Now, they might have a mild hybrid 48-volt starter or something system, but the cars are still running 12 volts, which they've been running for 70 years, 65 years. They've been running at 12 volts. And Tesla re-engineered the entire car at 48 volts. It has a much more robust network that is faster than everybody else, and it runs all the accessories at a much higher speed, with much lower latency and with much less plumbing and much less power expended. So that is a lesson learned, which will trickle down to all the other cars in the future, and it will save them money on those kinds of things. But right now, that's the only car that's that way. The Model Y, the new Model Y, is also the first, I think, that they've ever had that's brake-by-wire. It has a redundancy system that will kick in if something goes bad, but it's a brake-by-wire system that is, when you press the brake pedal, it doesn't actually press, the cylinder which pushes brake fluid to the actual brake pedals. It just it mimics it. So that's so when they put in brake-by-wire, steer-by-wire, they'll be able to make right-hand, left-hand drive cars much faster and much easier. So there's a lot of lessons learned. Now, I don't think that they're going to be making cars in the same way that they are making them right now. The new Cyber Taxi, which who knows, they say they're launching them in another couple of months in Austin, is going to be very inexpensive for them to build. It has no steering wheel. It has no brake pedals. It's just a shell of a car. It's front-wheel drive only, and it has a fairly small battery because they're going to be able to, their fleet will be able to recharge by induction. They won't have to be plugged in, and they have a robot cleaning buffet. So there's that too that they're working on. There's a lot of things that they're doing that are to cut costs and to make transportation more affordable. How much of it is going to actually come to fruition, we'll see. But I have to say, even though I'm driving a hardware 3 car, the newer cars are all driving what they call AI/hardware 4, which is a new array of cameras and sensors. My car is driving better than ever on the highway, and it's sort of very odd how it doesn't quite keep the exact speed that I set for it anymore. I maybe put 75 or 77 miles per hour, and it goes a little bit around of a curve and goes down to 73 and moseys back up to 74, 75, 76, almost like it's a human driver, that it's not actually, immediately going back to one speed, but it drives my entire drive from LA here, until I disengage it, basically at Vistacino.
And by you saying here, you're talking about Palm Springs, just for the sake of our
From
audience.
Los Angeles to Palm Springs. I engage full self-driving in downtown Los Angeles when I get on the freeway and at the 4-level interchange, and it drives itself from there. And I have an old car with hardware 3. All the videos that you see online with everybody saying, "Oh, it's the best," that they're driving hardware 4 cars on a different software level than I have, and so they are much better. But mine is surprisingly better than it's ever been, and I'm driving a very old car with very old sensors. So they may or may not. I'm hoping they do solve it, because somebody's going to solve it eventually. But we'll see where they go with it, because frankly, their system is much more. It's much less expensive. It doesn't have LiDAR, it doesn't have radar, it's just pure vision. And we'll see if it works, because it seems to be able, they have it, they activated it in China now. And so now there's thousands of Chinese videos of people driving around with their car on full self-driving in China. I mean, it's all supervised. It's not actually, level 3 autonomy or anything like that. But, it's getting better and better. And the more the computers have to train on, the better the software gets. And a lot of this has to do with machine learning, because it's very difficult to scale up what Waymo has. Waymo, if you've been around Los Angeles or San Francisco or a few other markets, there's these Waymo Jaguar cars driving all around. I-Pace, I think is what they are, driving all around. And they are equipped with another $150,000 worth of sensors. That's not a very affordable, scalable project.
Right.
And it has to be fully mapped with LiDAR, and it's geofenced, and full self-driving won't be. So Tesla, as much as I despise Elon and what he's been doing, the company, which I don't think he's really doing much for running it, is run by competent managers who know what they're doing. And by the way, the Tesla Diner is about to open.
Yeah, you mentioned the Waymo cars, and this brings up something, because you don't see them very much anymore around, except for the Waymo ones. But just from a purely kind of aesthetic perspective, what happened to Jaguar? Because Jaguars used to be extremely beautiful cars, like gorgeous, like jaw-droppingly pretty cars. Mm-hmm. And you see them now, to the extent you see them at all anymore, they're just like this lame, hybrid dump truck garbage thing. What happened? Why is it there's nothing in the cars that they build now that has any design language that has anything to do with Jaguar?
The first mistake was when you said cars, plural. Jaguar sells one model, the F-Pace, which is an SUV. Mm-hmm. That's it. They've discontinued everything else. Yeah, they're going to reboot in another year, and everything's going to be electric. What we've seen that they've introduced so far, people been scratching their heads. It's going to be some very, very futuristic looking very long sedans. And I'm assuming they'll have I haven't seen anything other than the sedan that they've shown. It actually looks like a big coupe, but it's going to be all electric. So that's their future, I guess. Whether it looks like what you think a Jaguar looks like? I don't think so. I think that they've rebooted everything, and so far they've been, roasted on every social media platform about how people hate it and think it looks terrible, and this is not a Jaguar, and this is just, awful. I don't think people are worried about the electric part of it. I think they just think they don't like it. I mean, right now, the only profitable thing going for JLR, which is Jaguar Land Rover, which is owned by Tata Motors in India, is the SUVs from Land Rover, Range Rover. Those are making money. Those are still selling, leasing well to realtors and soccer moms.
They're not going to put a pink dot on the hood, are they?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I don't think they're going to be doing much with it. We'll see what they do with it, but I mean, eventually they'll try to make Land Rover mostly electric, but they'll keep the gas as long as they can, I think. I mean, who else is going to drive British heads of state around? I mean,
Exactly.
aren't they all driving around in black Range Rovers? Least.
Yeah, I mean,
Nobody wants to buy one because repairs after 3 years. No, not good.
the repairs. Yeah, the repairs are terrible. I mean, but yeah, I mean, I think that there is. Yeah, I mean, because you mentioned the Land Rover, I feel like the Defender, the kind of new Defender, is like in that there is, I feel like, a market for that shape of car. I feel like people like there's the Land Rover Defender, there's the kind of reboot of the Bronco, which is kind of in the same shape and size.
And then macho. It's cosplay.
Yeah, cosplay macho. And I think ultimately, I think that's kind of in the where like the Rivian R2 is going to be kind of in that same.
I don't know. I think that Bronco.
I ordered one. I don't know if I'll ever see it.
I think it looks gauche.
Which
it's
one?
just the Bronco. I saw one
Which
the
one?
other day.
The Bronco Sport, which is basically a Ford Escort, or a Ford not Escort.
Just put the damn thing to rest.
Well, the Bronco sells very well for Ford, and the Bronco Sport, which that's their best-selling small SUV. And they don't sell anything but SUVs anymore. People want to cosplay tough, macho. Those cars are never going off-road. In fact, most Broncos are never going off-road. A few of them are, but most aren't.
Yeah.
Oh no! Of course. I mean,
lots of them are just for mommies.
And I totally get that because like I think like Rivian's tagline is like live adventurously, and I am living adventurously between my house, the supermarket, and my job at a university. Like I'm certainly not like whatever.
But they sell really cool tents and cooking.
The tents are very cool. They're very expensive.
Very cool. I don't know who's going. I mean, and I think that the cars are certainly off-road capable. But,
yes.
Who's really going off? A very small subset of the owners are actually going off-road with it. I mean, yes, if you're a YouTuber and you want to say, oh, look, we took it into the wilderness and we took it into the sand dunes and here's how it did. And they did that to the Cybertruck too. But most Cybertrucks are just, urban haulers. They're not really for anything else. And for douchebags and, for commercial advertisements and Kim Kardashian.
But honestly, the thing is, and I'd be curious to hear what you guys think about this. I have for a while driven SUVs exclusively. And when I was back at my parents' house recently, I had to drive to go get coffee or whatever. My parents have a sedan. It's a, whatever, 6-year-old Lexus, ES, whatever. And I have to say,
it's a nice car.
Hunkering down to get into that low ass sedan and the range of vision that I had when I was in it, I was like, no, ma'am, I do not like this.
How old are you? Come on now.
I get why no one's selling sedans anymore, because if you have the option to be in an SUV, why would you want to be in a sedan? I don't get it.
I would drive a Model Y or something like that if it fit my garage. Nothing will fit in my garage but the Model 3. And as far as Cybertruck is certainly out of the question. But the R2 would probably fit my garage if they ever make it.
I just got an email that they are expanding the facility in Normal.
Right, the Normal factory is expanding, blah. They're just putting up the walls now, and they say they're expecting production next year.
Yes, that's right.
We'll see. They desperately need that model. They
They do.
desperately need it.
Look, we don't even know if the United States is going to be around in a year.
Well, that's a good question, and we don't know what we honestly don't know what manufacturers are going to be around, and we should talk about that. But let's first talk about this. The thing we were going to talk about originally was the charging rate of a new EV that was introduced by BYD in China.
Mm-hmm.
And first of all, BYD stands for
Big Young Dicks.
Build Your Dreams.
Okay.
It is Build
Same
Your
thing.
Dreams. Same thing. So yes, Build Your Dreams, which is extremely very aggressive. They're going to probably overtake Toyota by the end of this decade, just in size. The problem is that, well, first of all, they won't be able to sell a car in the United States with 100% tariffs. They are selling cars very well in Mexico, I might add. They're very popular in Mexico now. Taxis are loving them because they're very inexpensive to buy and to operate. So BYD is doing very well, and the rest they're doing very well, and they're doing much better than they thought in Europe. Although Tesla's still stomping all of them all over Europe, maybe not Germany. They're doing very, very well in China. They're selling a couple million units a year. Not all of them are EVs. Many of them are hybrids. Plug-in hybrids. But what they announced is that they've come up with a what is it called? Let me get this here. 5-minute EV charging sounds great, but how useful is it? This is from Wired. And so they've come up with it's a 1,000-volt architecture. Right now, Teslas are running on 400 volt. I think the Cybertruck is 800 volt, but the Lucid Gravity is the highest right now at 926 volts, and I think the Porsche Taycan and the Audi GT e-tron is also at 800 volts. There's a few others at 800 volts, but the problem is that it's really just, it sounds good. It's a new battery system, but there are no chargers right now that can run. It's a very specialized, the cable is extremely specialized liquid cooled cable, and you have to have a very powerful amount of electricity to go to these charging units. And right now there really isn't anything that could do what they say it can do. Let's see. I mean, just I think last year or the year before, CATL, which is the biggest battery maker in the world in China, they do 37% of all EV batteries. Everybody else is a dwarf compared to them. They found one that they could do in 10 minutes. It's an LFP battery, so it's a iron based battery that can do 10 minutes. 80% charge. So that's a pretty good one too. Again, you have to have a very high speed charger to do it, and we just don't have that right now. So I think while the BYD is a good announcement, it's more of a headline, and China doesn't have the infrastructure to charge like that, and certainly not the United States or the rest of the world. It's a goal too. It's also a special type of battery that's able to take a charge faster, that doesn't expand and contract as much. There's all sorts of chemistries involved with the battery. So there's a bunch of things at play that make that sound. So it's a good headline, and it will be coming, but not immediately, and certainly not to the United States by any means. Tesla's most of the superchargers right now are V3. The new Tesla Diner, which will be opening in used to be a Shakey's Pizza, where all the hookers used to stand and hitchhike. It's coming online soon, and it has so it will be able to do the fastest Tesla charging, at least in my neighborhood, in the Hollywood area. Eventually, they'll have to upgrade the ones in the museum and the ones over in Indio and the other ones in Cathedral City and stuff. They will upgrade those as well. But right now, most of them are V2 or V3 superchargers. And the V3 supercharger that I go to is still pretty good. My car will charge, it starts at 250 kilowatts, but then goes down fast as the battery starts to fill up. But it's about a 20-minute for me to jump from 20 to 80%, so, 60% charge. It's about 20 minutes. It's okay. I can barely get through my emails in that time and text people on Grindr. It's very hard to get through all that time. It's tough to get through all that. But as I think part of it is just having the people seeing what's out there, because right now, aside from Tesla superchargers, Richie, how hard it is to get good working charging systems out there.
Yeah.
And in order to have EV adoption, you need to have better charging systems everywhere. I mean, John, you have the Aria, right? They're going to have a Nissan Leaf SUV, a smaller Aria. It's coming very soon. There's going to be an all-new Sentra, and there's going to be an all-new Rogue, all sorts of things rolling out from Nissan, assuming they don't file for bankruptcy. And as time goes on, we don't know where things are going to go for any manufacturer.
If we go bankrupt, do I get to just keep my car that I'm leasing?
Well, you'll be able to keep the car you're leasing, and just make the payment. Everything will be fine. And the car's not, the Nissan's not going to go away. It just might have to financially restructure.
Well, I was thinking about this actually because, we were talking about the tariffs and this kind of crazy world where, all the foreign cars are, and how do you define foreign cars and a 25% tariff and all of this stuff that, there's a chance that no one will be able to buy a new car or even buy parts for their old car, in a year. And I was
true.
I was like, when the lease comes up on my Rivian, I might have to buy it just because I couldn't even afford anything else ever again. Like I'll just have to drive that thing into the dirt because
Hopefully it won't be that bad, but I told you I found an article that Car and Driver just put out today, I think, and they went over all the various things. Like, for example, Acura. Okay, it's just basically a Honda, but majority of Acura's lineup is assembled in the United States. Parts are from elsewhere. Parts come from various places, but the new ADX and the SUV is built in Mexico. Audi, their entire lineup, everything from Audi is built outside the United States. Everything. So every single Audi gets a 25% raise Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it is, April 2nd. Alfa Romeo, every car gets a 25% raise because they're all built in Italy. Aston Martin, everything is a 25% raise there in the UK. Bentley, all UK. BMW, the 2 Series, M2, and 3 Series sedans are built in Mexico. 25%. The company has promised to absorb the increased tariffs on those models through May 1st. Then the 2 Series Grand Coupe, the 4 Series, i4, i5, blah, 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 are all built in Germany. M3, M4, M5, M8, X1, X2 are all built in Germany. The Z4 is built in Austria, but they do make the X3, X4, X5, X7, and X6 in the United States. Buick, the Enclave is built in the United States. The rest of it comes from elsewhere, including China. A Cadillac, the Optique is built in Mexico. And the rest of the Caddy rolls off from production lines in the United States, but parts may come from other places. Chevrolet, they built the Blazer and the Blazer EV, Equinox and Equinox EV in Mexico. The Trax and Trailblazer are built in Korea. The Silverado is built in the United States and Mexico and Canada. And the rest of the Chevy's lineup is entirely built in the United States. Chrysler builds the
solution for all of this.
Yeah, the Chrysler Pacifica is built in Canada. The Dodge Daytona is built in Canada.
Let's just eliminate him.
Well, that would be a good thing. But you pick these things. Honda builds the Accord, Odyssey, Passport, Pilot, and Ridgeline in the United States. However, the Civic Type R is built in Japan, and the rest of the Civic's lineup is built in either Canada or Mexico. The CRV is built, which is their best-selling car, is split between the U.S. and Canada. Let's scroll down to Toyota.
But it's also, but the thing is, if you think about it, though, it's not fundamentally like this idea of putting tariffs on foreign cars or foreign car parts it is just not reflective of any kind of 2025 reality. I mean, this is not, you don't have, the Model T, factory in Detroit. Right. Rattling off a bunch of cars. It's because, you look at things like even something like an engine
Yes.
They'll
Or
cast
transmission.
like the main part in the U.S., but parts come from Canada that are shipped actually directly to Mexico to be worked on, and then shipped back to Canada, then come to it is all interlocking.
Yes,
and that's
it is.
just the cars that are even built here.
Right, exactly. I mean, Toyota built let's look at Toyota, because they're everybody's sort of favorite car company, right? They build the Camry,
Not
Corolla,
anymore.
Corolla Cross, Grand Highlander and Sequoia, Sienna, and Tundra in the United States. However, the most popular Toyota, the Tacoma, is built in Mexico. The Supra is built in Austria, and the RAV4, the best-selling Toyota, is built in Canada and Japan. So their best-selling car, the RAV4, is not built in the United States.
I mean,
they can't absorb people who are buying a RAV4. This is a $35,000-$40,000 compact SUV. 25% more. They're already $40,000. What are you going to do? Pay $50 now?
I mean,
it's not going to happen.
I was saying earlier to Todd that if this is how it's going to be, that the cars in the U.S. are going to look like cars in Cuba. Like, we're going to have people with Nissan Altimas from 15 years. Yeah, no, Nissan Altimas from 2002 held together with baling twine and duct tape because they can't afford a new car and they can't afford parts to fix it.
And scrapyard parts. So not only are we going to have a greatly increased prices of cars, we're going to have the cost to repair our existing cars go up because the parts are coming again from Canada, Mexico, China, Germany, any number of places. And insurance is going to go up by at least 10% because the cost to repair any car is going to go up because the cost of parts is going to go up by, in some cases, 25%. The labor is about whatever labor is going to be, but if parts are involved, it could come from anywhere. And the insurance companies aren't going to eat it for us, at least not the ones I know.
Hey, folks, here's the deal. Go out and buy yourself a bicycle.
A bicycle, unless we start tariffing, those might be built elsewhere too.
Right.
I mean, those could be built elsewhere too.
Schwinn.
No,
North Korea.
It's baffling. I mean, the whole thing is bad. Well, yeah, North Korea, great. That's where I want to go. Where they're friendly to the LGBT community, John. North Korea, yeah. This is everybody scratching their head as to the stupidity of all this. And, I don't think anybody can get through to the stupidity, the stupidity in charge, how, what a bad idea this was. And as we know, all the bootlickers over there, no one's willing to try to explain to him, this is a bad idea. I mean, he's thinking we're going to make America great before the First World War. Before we had income taxes, we relied on tariffs. Okay, well, that was nice before we had a globalized economy, before we became the arsenal of democracy, before, became a, entirely, globalized economy. I mean, forget about, being great Americans as long as you're the right color. It's much more than that. I mean, we're not going to be going back. Not only are we going to start you're not going to start building televisions and cars or build new factories and everything else just to, just for this. We were doing much better under the prior administration, under the Inflation Reduction Act, when they started to build battery factories and other electric cars here, because they said that way you can get the tax credits. And that was a big engine of the economy, because all of a sudden, all those companies like LG Energy Solutions, which is a big Korean EV battery manufacturer, and Samsung ST, another big Korean battery manufacturer, and Tesla was ramping up their own things, and Panasonic from Japan was ramping up. I mean, all of these people were going to build new factories. Intel is going to build new chip factories. TMSC,
the Taiwan semiconductor.
They're building
company,
one.
yeah.
They're building one, I think, in Arizona. I mean, they're the behemoth of chips. I mean, they're going to build this, amazingly modern new foundry to have all these things here in the United States. Those were all happening before. Now, if the economy tanks,
well, not even
build these factories,
and not even the economy tanking, that Trump has signaled, just, in this drug-addled, like, old man way, that he was, like, thinking about that the CHIPS Act should be repealed. Like, that's literally like one, like, good, like, bipartisan piece of sort of modern decision making that everyone agreed was a good idea, and, like, literally was the catalyst for all of this growth in terms of, like, 21st century manufacturing. But because that happened under Biden, and because he's so small brained, all he can think is Biden equals bad. He's like, CHIPS Act should be repealed. And no one I don't think is actually, like, in the room to be like, that's a bad idea.
It is. It's bad. It's TMSC. It's the Taiwan Semiconductor TSMC, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing. The company you've never heard of, but is a multi-billion-dollar company that is literally just 100 miles away from China, and who China wants to take over.
Yep.
And they are going to, their chips are integral to everything that goes into all of our modern electronics. And they're building a gigantic new, it's called a foundry, right? Or a fab, whatever it is. They call these super advanced chip manufacturing companies, facilities. This is what we want here. We want to be protected from something that might happen, China, having a little look-see at Taiwan again. I can see Trump just saying, well, it's Taiwan. Who cares? I mean, we should care, but these are important things to have in the United States. And, Intel and anybody, who else is doing it?
Especially since apparently we're going to war with them.
Apparently, it's astounding. But all of these things, by the way, are integral to the car industry too. It's not just, not just all of our, electronics and smartphones and like all of these things. Cars are almost always going to be software defined in the future. Your car is software defined, Richie. My car is software defined. John, your car is software defined. It's all about the chips and the software that run these cars. And that's the future. We want that to be here as much as possible, whether it's the supply chain for the chips or the batteries or anything else. We want that here because that's where things are going. Things are not going back. Much as they'd like to say that, we're not going to go back to a day where, we're just going to have a carbureted car anymore. Those are gone. Those days are gone.
But that is like literally, that is where Trump's brain is at. I wouldn't be surprised if he issued an executive order mandating leaded gas to come back.
Oh God. I mean,
like, or that cars have to have fins, because back when I was a kid, we had Cadillacs with fins on them and leaded gas, and we were a country, I wouldn't be surprised if that was an EO that happened like next week.
Who knows? Another, batshit crazy executive order. I don't know where it's going, but, I do know that we need to build up more charging infrastructure. I do know that we need to have more chips. I do know that we need to have as much as possible production here. But realistically, Germany's just going to stop producing cars. I mean, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean, there's more and more we're going to see other countries turning away from us. And saying, okay, well, if you're not going to play ball in the global sphere that we're all else in, then we're just going to do without you. It's like, what is Canada going to do? They're not going to be the 51st state. We're not going to buy Panama. Greenland is not going to become, part of the United States. None of that's going to happen. But this batshit crazy stuff, is going to affect the entire economy. Not just the car industry, but the car industry in particular is very vulnerable to these kinds of tariffs that he's slapping on these cars, and just saying that we're going to put them on and magically cars are going to be produced here and parts are going to be all produced here and everything's going to be.
Don't you guys think though don't you think that CEOs at these major corporations, say the Fortune 1000, are going to put their foot down because
I'm waiting.
People are not going to be able to buy any of their products. And ultimately, Wall Street is going to stomp on this motherfucker's head.
But no one, this is a first mover problem. No one wants to be the first mover.
Right. It's the same problem we had in the tech industry in the mid 1990s, which is, everybody wanted to be first to be second. Nobody wanted to take the bull by the horns.
Right. Because the thing is, if you raise a rational, fact-based argument as to why this stuff doesn't make sense and is counterproductive and is bad for the consumer, bad for the country, bad for the world, bad for the environment, whatever, you will be targeted. I mean, we're looking, again, at everything from law firms. We talked about this the other day. Law firms that happened to have Democratic clients or take on cases against Trump initiatives, whether it's Paul Weiss. There's an article today that Skadden has been scrambling behind the scenes to try to get in good graces with the administration. These are deep-pocketed companies with huge capitalizations that are just falling over themselves to capitulate to the whims of this administration. With the DEI
afraid
stuff,
of loss of federal revenue from clients having business in front of the government.
Well, look,
or the government being clients.
I don't see a lot of Democrats, elected Democrats, who are afraid to take him on. I agree that many of them have been weak in the past, but I am heartened to see the action of a number of them, not Chuck Schumer, but many others. And I also feel heartened this week that we saw something happen in the state of Pennsylvania earlier this week, where a district that in 130 years has voted Republican by significant margins put a state senator in their legislature who is a Democrat because they are sick and tired of this shit. And that is what I'm hoping we're going to see more and more Democrats who are standing up and fighting against this begin to do, because they're the ones who are not worried about him being out there and primarying them. And we need people who've got balls, and it'd be nice to see the people on the other side, on the Republican side, not be afraid of him. But they are.
I agree. Yeah, they are. They're very afraid. I want to see more. Is it the governor of Maine? Is she the one that's standing up to him?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought she was good.
We'll see you in court.
Yeah, see you in court. Okay, yeah, exactly. It's like, we're going to follow the law, see you in court, I guess. But we need more we need more like that. And I don't know where it's going, but I mean, this whole, this entire, crashing the economy and making cars almost impossible for new buyers to buy, and parts and insurance. All of this is going to just drive inflation even more. I mean,
the fact
it's not going to fix anything.
Yeah, the fact that nobody's going to be able to afford anything much longer is going to be the breaking point. And right now, people can still afford this, that, and the next thing. But it's, when people are faced with the fact that they don't know if they can count on their Social Security check to be there, or their health insurance to be there, or that as you guys mentioned earlier, with the cost of parts and whatnot going up, insurance companies are going to have to raise premiums on their customers, because if you get in an accident, it's going to cost more for them to cover it. Yeah. These things do have a breaking point. And, I think we saw part of that breaking point happen with people who were Mr. Trump's supporters at the polls, when they realized that, oh God, he's going to get rid of my job too. No, I voted for you. Don't take my job away.
Or don't deport my husband or my wife.
Exactly.
Yeah, don't do that.
Exactly. And
they were here legally.
As these things are happening more and more, I think, real freedom lovers are going to push back to the point where we are going to have the pot have its top blown off by the steam.
Well, I can only hope so. I mean, how long can people run two countries?
And I think where that kind of comes down to and why I think it was sort of a crystallizing moment in a way. And I say this as someone who is an extreme pacifist, and someone who, like, even in terms of activism, I'm not the bravest. I'll fully admit, I'm not the bravest person on the planet. But the thing that I think crystallizes this, and it was kind of maybe like a canary in the coal mine, was the Luigi moment with the UHC CEO.
Right.
I mean, that was, and I freaked out, I think with good reason, a lot of people who are in the kind of plutocratic, kleptocratic class were like, this is, I mean, obviously killing someone is like inexcusable. I'm not, like I said, I'm a pacifist, but I think it speaks to there are sort of rumblings of discontent, and people feel like they have no outlet for their rightful anger about things like denials of coverage in the healthcare industry. And I think when you start to see, things like when Trump's, in his second inaugural, when you see who was on the dais there lined up, you saw Google and Facebook and Tesla and all these CEOs lined up, and you see who is benefiting from this administration. There are going to be other people who feel hopeless and angry because their worlds are being destroyed. They can't afford anything. Their moms and their grandmas can't get Social Security anymore because they've broken it such that the checks don't even go out anymore. Even if they don't officially get rid of it, they make it so that it doesn't actually work. People are going to start to do things that are going to be outside of the bounds of normal behavior. Exactly. And we're going to see what happens.
Yeah. Exactly. And as more and more of that happens, I mean, again, I'm with you, Richie. I certainly don't advocate for people to hurt other people and to destroy property and whatnot. But the frustration is real, and it has hit a boiling point, and people are going to do these things. And it is how you now have people like Luigi Mangione becoming folk heroes.
Folk heroes, exactly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And you see to a lesser degree, I mean, I think people right now are craving strength and bravery. I mean, Luigi Mangione, I wouldn't say it was strong or brave. He did something that a lot of people latched onto because they have been hurt so bad by that industry. But people are looking for folk heroes, and that even includes people like an AOC or anyone who is out there. Pete Buttigieg, who has been really good, especially on this Signal thing about explaining why it's so bad. But they're looking for people who are speaking truth to power in a moment where you see a lot of people in the Republican Party fully, but even some kind of establishment Democrats not willing to say what is right in front of our faces.
Right. I think people are looking for people to take action, to do something. Now, again, I'm not asking for somebody to be shot. That's a different level of action. But I think that's catalyzed people to say, he did something. I mean, because no one's doing anything. So he did something. And I think that we need to step up and not play the old game and say, whatever it is. But I don't know what CEO is going to start be the first to get in the way. And I don't know whether, we can't always, I don't know, although I got to give Jasmine Crockett some cred for
absolutely
saying, roller baby.
Absolutely. She's one that's definitely doing that. But,
we need to be more, forceful about a lot of these things, but fixing this problem with this crazy, screwing up how many lives with just the tariffs and, screwing up the Social Security Administration, screwing up the, health and human services, all these various things that we, are going to really, really, really hurt people and make it almost impossible to live in the United States and to be able to afford to live here. And I think that they're way on their way to making it, a hellscape like they think it was 4 years, with Biden. But they're really making it that way. I mean, it's going to happen to people that voted for him is just as much as it's going to happen to people who didn't vote for him.
Well, listen, we're going to have to jump because we've got the rest of the weekend to get things done, but we're running out of time to get them done. And we'll be back here on Tuesday talking about all the news that's fit to speak about in the LGBTQ community. If you want to get in touch with us in the meantime, you can do that by going to richieandjohn.com. There you'll find phone numbers, email addresses, even our snail mail address, if you can even find a United States.
As long as we still have a postal service, by the way, send them now. Use your forever stamps because they're not forever at this point.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So anyway, we will get back together with you again real soon. Todd, thank you so much for joining us tonight. It is kind of a pipe dream, but one that I look forward to when I can have a 5-minute charging session with my EV. And hopefully we see sometime before I'm dead that kind of infrastructure in America.
I hope so.
Probably not, but at least not as long as we keep putting nincompoops like Trump in office. But let's hope that is, that MAGA is on their way out, nonetheless.
So too. I hope so too.
Richie, I will see you on Tuesday for Newsday Tuesday, and I hope everybody has a fabulous weekend.
Thanks, John.
Talk to you soon, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining us on Richie and John. This podcast is a production of the Mutual Broadcasting System and is available at richieandjohn.com, as well as most major podcast portals, including Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Spotify.